What's up, guys? It's the Bluebloods, and we're coming at you with another episode, and it continues our ACC in 28 days theme. And we are joined by Jody Demling. He's the publisher of Cardinal Authority for 247 Sports and host of the Cardinal Insider. So I just want to say I appreciate you joining me today.
No problem. I appreciate you having me, and always love to talk a little ACC. And I do all kinds of sports, but I have my favorites. So you'll figure that out when we start talking in a few minutes. No.
I like it. I like it. But we got to start with this season, man. I mean, Louisville, they got to a 4-7 record. There were some ups and downs all the way throughout the year, but just in terms of your preseason expectations, did this year meet, exceed, or fall short of what you were hoping to see out of this team?
It fell short. But when you take a step back and you look at the first 2 years of the Scott Satterfield era, they're really kind of similar. The only difference is the fact of the matter is this year they didn't get some breaks. They won 8 games his first year. There were so many close games. They got some breaks in the NC State game. They got some breaks in the Wake Forest game. They got some breaks throughout that first year, and they didn't turn the ball over that much. While they weren't great, they kept it at a minimum. This year, it was turnover all the time. I mean, the worst in the country, and they didn't get those breaks. So in those close games, they weren't winning like they were last year. And so really, like I said, if you take a step back and you look at the way that this first 2 years went for Scott Satterfield and for the Louisville football program, they're very similar. Louisville very easily could have been 4-7 or 5-6 in his first year, and this year could have very easily been 7-4, 8-5, depending on kind of where it was. So to me, that's why they did not exceed what anybody thought that they should have or could have. But to me, I'm maybe not as disappointed as a lot of the fans.
Right. I think I had Louisville finishing 4th in the ACC coming into the season, right there behind UNC, Notre Dame, Clemson. And
Mhm.
so, I picked Malik Cunningham as a potential offensive player of the year in the ACC. He has so much hype, but I want to get to him. He was one of my favorite players. I'm really looking forward to see what he offers in the coming years. But they had Javian Hawkins, Malik Cunningham, Tutu Atwell. I mean, there was so much flash and explosiveness on that offense, but in terms of Cunningham, what do you want to see him improve on moving forward? And what is one area of his game that if he takes that to the next level, that's going to be the spark that really puts him over the top as a quarterback?
I think more than anything, he's got to become more consistent. He would have a good stretch and then 2 bad stretch, 2 good stretches, then a bad stretch, or in a game, within games, he has to be more consistent.
Right.
His accuracy was kind of off and on. His accuracy wasn't great, but I don't think um, I don't think it was totally necessarily all him. Uh, Mekhi Becton showed in the NFL just how good he was.
Yeah, he did.
And I think when I look at Louisville, if I went back and watched every game in a row right now from this season and I kind of graded them, I think the offensive line played a big part, or lack thereof of the offensive line played a big part in what he couldn't get done this year. He's got to improve. He's got to get better. There's no question. There's just no question about it that he has to. But I do think that the offensive line played a big factor in that.
Right. And, looking at something else, coming to the season, I just mentioned all the stars on the offense, but the defense was kind of, for me, a no-name defense. And at times it struggled, which put pressure on Cunningham, where I feel like he forced a lot of stuff in certain games, but it showed its potential. The Notre Dame game, the Syracuse game, they get a shutout at Syracuse. They hold Notre Dame to, I think it was 12 points. What do you think was missing early in the season? We saw Miami get anything and everything that they wanted in that week 2 matchup. And where do you see this defense taking a big step forward in this upcoming season?
Well, first of all, I think you have to look at this. I go back to big picture again, and you have to think that um, 2 years ago, right now, out of that 2018 season, Louisville was not only the worst defense in the ACC, but they were one of the worst statistical defense in the history of college football. They were bad. They lost a lot of their better players off of a really bad defense that it had a run of 4 straight years of a different defensive coordinator. Uh,
Right.
so Brian Brown, when he came in, they knew there was no depth. They took a walk on were playing a walk on at safety. They had 2 or 3 walk ons on the front line. They just had guys plugged in places where they didn't really fit. With that said, they've made a big jump from that 18 year to the first year, and from then until this year. I mean, being ranked in the top 30 in a couple of statistics, in the top 50 in every statistic, to me exceeded what I thought that they would do. Early on, it was a matter to me, when you look at it early on, it's a matter of Trey Clark probably ended up being their best defensive player. I definitely think he will be next year. Probably was last year. He arrived like 5 days before camp started. He was transferred from Liberty late, and he got here right at the very so early on. I think the COVID stuff and just some guys coming in late that they had to count on really kind of hurt them a little bit. Moving forward, they've got a lot of their key guys back. Yes, they lost Dorian Etheridge, who for 4 years was a solid defensive linebacker, but really didn't have a very good year this past season. A lot of the fans and I kind of agree, Monty Montgomery was probably a little bit better than he was at the end of the year, and saw more of his reps. So having CJ Avery come back for a 5th year and Monty Montgomery as that second linebacker, I think they're better at the linebacker group. Trey Clark is back. Chandler Jones is a veteran guy at the other corner. So the 2 corners are really good. At safety, Russ Yeast and Isaiah Hayes got beat all the time last year, and you hate to say and point out to different guys because it wasn't just them. It was a lot of everything that was going on. But you bring in a guy with Kendrick Duncan, who is an all-conference guy from Georgia Southern, and he not only looks the part as a big physical dude, but he's a player. I mean, he could be an all-conference ACC type guy. And then they've got a couple of 4 stars, and they've just got guys that are better, I think, right now than what they've had in recent years, and they're going to take another step forward. The defensive line is still, to me, the biggest question mark. They've got more bodies. Think about that. They only had 7 scholarship offensive linemen and 8 scholarship defensive linemen when this staff took over. Okay, that's ridiculous. They've built it up to where when they get the freshmen in the summer, I think they're going to have 16 scholarship defensive linemen. But of the 16, I think 12 of them are in the freshman or sophomore classes. So it's going to be young guys. But they're going to have to. They'll work through it and they'll do some things. So they're getting better there. I just think defensively, Brian Brown has done a fantastic job and will continue to build this moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy stat. I would never believe that if you would just told me that randomly. But I want to move to the
17
coaches.
wide receivers, though.
Oh yeah,
They had
well,
17 wide receivers. So.
well, I think we just got done covering the Senior Bowl down in Mobile, and Dez Fitzpatrick, man, I didn't know that name coming into the season. Every single practice during the game, he showed out every time. On top of Tutu Atwell being there, the wide receiver unit was stacked. But Moving on to Scott Satterfield. He's one of my favorite, newer head coaches at wherever he is. This was his second season at the Cardinals. He comes in from Appalachian State, had a successful first year, like you said. What were your first impressions of Satterfield as a head coach, and what do you think his potential is here at Louisville?
Well, I mean, I think again, the first year, it's a lot about culture. It's a lot about accountability. It's a lot about staff with him. They did lose 4 guys after this season, which is going to be interesting to see. They've replaced them all, and it'll be interesting to see how they kind of mesh together. For Scott Satterfield, from day one, he talked more about culture. He talked more about accountability. He talked more about guys buying in, and I do think that first year we talked about, 8 wins the first year, 4 wins this year. Some of it was obviously luck. A lot of it was turnovers. A lot of it was just, there was a lot of different things. But I also think a little fraction of that is, they call it their special sauce. I don't know what it is, but they get guys to buy in. Guys are at the coaches' homes. They're all out to dinner. They do things in normal years. And in COVID, they couldn't, because of COVID, they couldn't do that. They could not have, the offensive line couldn't go to Dwayne Ledford's house every Wednesday night and, eat wings and his wife's chocolate chip cookies, and we learned the first year that the guys bought into that kind of stuff. And I do think so. I do think a fraction of this second year and the bad year that they had has a little something, to do with that. Now, that being said, Scott Satterfield, I think, has done a really good job. I think they've got to recruit better. They know that they've got to recruit better, and they did this year. This is the second highest star, as far as player rating is concerned. This is the second highest class in school history. Well, maybe third. It's like tied with second, I think. And so they're going to do that. They know they got to do that. His biggest thing now is at the end of the year, when it kind of got out that he was looking at South Carolina or whatever the fact was, he lost a lot of the fan base, some of the trust there with the fan base. He's got to win that back. If you win games, you win that back. And again, I think they've got a chance to win some games next year. But for me, besides the fumbles, besides and I mean the fumbles on the field, and besides the key close losses that they've had, I think for the only thing he's really done wrong is kind of the fumble with South Carolina. And again, I think he can regroup and win the fan base back with some wins this coming year.
Yeah, that was a big story. I thought for a minute that he was going to take it. That would have been an interesting move. But you're part of 247 Sports. I love talking recruiting. I'm sure you do too. And you just talked about, I mean, Louisville locking up a top 40 class. That's huge. It's highlighted by some defensive studs. They need help on the defensive end. You've talked about some of them, but what are your thoughts for this class as a whole, and who are the immediate contributors in this class that are going to come in as true freshmen and really make an impact?
Well, Ben Perry, first of all, they need safety help. They had to have safety help. The only thing that worries me about this class is there are a couple guys that they're going to have to count on right away that didn't have a senior year. So they haven't played because their state didn't have it. In North Carolina and in Illinois, being Ben Perry and Travion Cooley, the running back, because their state did not have football, they haven't played since their junior year. They've had over a year. It's going to be almost 2 years off before they get back into it next fall and play. That's the only thing that really worries me about it. I think they've done well. So the second lowest rated guy in the class is a kid from Boca Raton, Florida. He was the Palm Beach Defensive Player of the Year for the Palm Beach Post, named Ashton Jalot. And he is a defensive end kind of guy. And he's one of 11 guys that have enrolled early. And so far, he's been the biggest surprise. He's been the guy that the staff says, we're not sure we're going to be able to keep him off of the field. That's the second lowest rated recruit in this class. That bodes well for the rest of those guys, of all those guys that are above him, especially the really high-ranked ones. So, yeah, I think they did a good job. They fill needs. They fit to their kind of scheme. And not only did they get good players, but they got kids that are really good quality kids. And I know that's something big that Scott Satterfield really likes.
Yeah, man, you got to fit in. It's all good to have 5 stars next to your name, but if you don't fit the culture, we've seen year in and year out, those kids are usually on their way to other schools if they don't fit in. But looking ahead, 2022, it's a really early, but with early signing day, you got to get those kids in immediately. Louisville doesn't have any commit so far, but what positions, in your opinion, are the greatest importance right now for them in this upcoming class? And who is at the top of their want list? Like if this coaching staff could pick these 1 or 2 players, they would be coming to Louisville next year.
Well, definitely quarterback. Right now they only have 2 scholarship quarterbacks in spring ball, Malik
Oh,
Cunningham and Evan Conley. Okay. Tyler Jensen's a kid who had committed to, I think, Northern Arizona and backed off of it. He's a walk-on, weird kind of thing. He's a walk-on from San Diego who came and is there now at Louisville. And he's going through spring. They've got a signee, TJ Lewis, who's a lot of, there's kind of question, is he really a quarterback or not kind of thing. I think he is. They're going to give him a chance. He'll be here in the summer. And then they have another walk-on, a kid who was an in-state kid who led his team Trinity to Nathan McElroy is his name. He led Trinity to 2 state titles in the Class 6A over the last 2 years. So they've got 2 really good walk-ons, but they're only going to have 3 scholarship players. They got to have a quarterback.
right.
And they've got a new quarterback coach, Pete Thomas, who's just kind of getting his feet wet. He's been on the staff for the last couple of years as a quality control guy. But as far as the recruiting is concerned, he's only offered a couple guys. They've offered, I think, 10 or 11 quarterbacks, but he's only offered, I think, 2 or 3 since he's taken the job. A lot of there's a lot of schools after these kids, but there's a set of brothers down in Tennessee. Destin Wade is the quarterback, and Keaton Wade is the linebacker. And Louisville, they have gone from we like them to we want them, and they're really high on the list. The problem with Louisville in 2022 is if you look at their roster in 2021, and everybody's going to be like this because of COVID and the extra year. But in
Right.
there's going to be 54-ish, 52, 53, 54, 55 freshmen listed in their roster for 2021. So the numbers are really skewed. And they don't have a big class anyway. It's only going to be between 10 and 15 probably when it's all said and done. And I would think most of those are probably going to come out of the transfer portal just because how many young kids can you take? You have to even the
Right.
roster out at some point or another. And there's going to be a ton of those guys in the transfer portal anyway. We've seen it this year. It's going to get worse, I think, before it gets better. So this will be a really interesting year for Scott Satterfield and his staff on how they do things moving forward as far as recruiting is concerned. And I think what they will do, they got to have a quarterback. And quite honestly, they could take a grad transfer quarterback down the road if they really wanted to. But they have to have a high school quarterback in this next class. What I think they'll do is then I think they'll take some shots. They'll swing for the fences on some guys, and if they land them, they get them. If they don't, they go to the transfer portal and they get they get a linebacker. They go to the transfer portal and they get a safety. Whatever that position might be. But I do think they take some shots for some guys and moving forward. And back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, defensive line, offensive line are still priorities. I think they take at least 2 in every class in those positions, no matter what the numbers are, just because of how low the numbers were when they got here.
Yeah, I like it. And with the transfer portal, like you said, it's always full of
Oh
really
yeah.
talented players, and it's not ever going to stop. And, to end this off, man, I would like to cover a few things in 2021. They got some huge games. Ole Miss and Atlanta. I am looking forward to that one. That's going to be 2 explosive offenses, and I hope that's exactly what
Yeah.
I think it's going to be.
It
And
should
then,
it should be a lot of fun. I mean, it really should be because I do. You mentioned Tutu, you mentioned Dez. Javion Hawkins is as good of a running back as we've seen around here. those three guys are gone. But Louisville, Jordan Watkins is a name that people are going to know nationally here coming up in the next couple of years. He's maybe not – he's bigger than Tutu Atwell, not as fast as Tutu Atwell, but not far behind. He's so athletic. He's a local kid. Braden Smith made some waves last year, did some things. He'll be back there. Marshawn Ford's still back. I mean, he's one of the best. He'll be one of the best tight ends, in the country next year. And then you've got Cunningham. And if he plays to the level that people think that he can, and there's some real potential for this offense next year moving forward. Now, they do have, as we were talking earlier, they do have 3 new coaches on offense, and that will be a big test.
Yeah, and then you also have UCF, not going to be an easy
Yep.
game, even though they're coming into town. Looking at the schedule overall, what do you think the ceiling and or floor is for this 2021 team?
It's probably one of the toughest. I mean, when we ranked like the teams on the schedule, normally I go to the end and you go to the end and you start from there because it's a lot easier knowing who the couple non-conference that are going to be bad on there.
Right.
But when you take Ole Miss, Kentucky, and UCF, that's 3 really pretty solid non-conference games right there. And then you throw in the fact that you're going to play Clemson and Florida State every year. NC State is a lot better. Virginia is the crossover every year that Louisville does get. Next year they're at Duke, and then who did I left out? Oh, and then Wake Forest has been a battle the last few years with Louisville. So and Syracuse. So there's not many gimmies. That's the thing.
Right.
And I think you go back to what we talked about at the very start. You've got some games that are winnable. There are some games that you're going to be in, and you're going to have to do some things to win them. And then there's some games that are going to be an uphill battle, for Louisville. They've got to correct the fumbles and the turnovers that they had last year, and take advantage of when they're in a game, winning that game and not losing such close games. So, I mean, I see no reason why at this point Louisville's program every year should not be in a bowl game. I know the last year of the Bobby Petrino era was dreadful, and they were at the bottom of the barrel. But that should be an anomaly when you're talking about Louisville football being this close removed to a Heisman Trophy winner and having the talented guys that they do have. They should every year. There should be no doubt every year that they should be going to a bowl game.
Yeah, I completely agree. And when they went to their last bowl game was against an SEC team in Mississippi State, and they dominated them from the kickoff until the end of that game. I was super impressed. But last question here, and I love asking people these questions because I get so many different perspectives. But you've covered Louisville, you've covered the area of Louisville for some time now, and you know all the ins and outs of this program. What makes Louisville so special in terms of the national landscape, and what makes Cardinal Stadium one of the more unique environments in the ACC to play at?
Well, I think what makes Louisville really so special is, and I don't think a lot of people really realize this until you're around. I think people now are kind of getting to know this because of the ACC. But I mean, this is the University of Louisville is the professional team in town. I mean, there's no pro. There's horse racing. The Cincinnati Bengals are an hour away. The Cincinnati Reds are an hour away. The Indianapolis Colts are an hour and 45 minutes away. The Tennessee Titans are, 2.5 whatever hours away. There's nothing in the city of Louisville. There's professional soccer, and that's it. So Louisville is the professional team here, and people care, and a lot of people do care. Right. And I don't think coaches really realize, it's funny when coaches leave here. Howard Schnellenberger, John L. Smith, Steve Cragthorpe, Bobby Petrino, the first time. When coaches leave here, Charlie Strong, years later they say to people, why did I leave? why did I leave that program? Because you can
Right.
win on the football field at the University of Louisville. They've proven that you can do that. You can have success. You can recruit. You can win a Heisman Trophy. You can win a BCS bowl game. You can do things here. And oftentimes the coaches think that it might, the grass might be greener on the other side or this or that. And they all to a man have all come back and said, I messed up. I shouldn't have left.
Right.
And I think that's what makes this place special is just the fact that it is a community that is a professional team to this community, and they do care. Cardinal Stadium to me is a lot of fun because if you're on the field or if you're in the stands wherever you are, you feel like you're on the field. And then before 2018, I guess they had the new enclosed end down there, in where it used to be. The football complex is still down there, but it used to be an open, go right back to the football complex, and now it's enclosed. And they did such a good job with that you can sit in the upper portion of the new enclosed. And I mean, literally, you feel like you're sitting right on top of the goal line. It's just a really cool place. And when Louisville is good, when Louisville has a big game and they're good, that place is as loud as you can, as a place that you'll find. Ask West Virginia, because back that year, holy cow, it was on a Thursday night, and it was Pat White and Steve Slayton, and man, oh man, it was as loud as it can possibly be. Florida State with the Lamar game on that Saturday afternoon was it's a really cool dynamic when that place is packed and Louisville is really good at football.
Yeah, it's all my list of stadiums I got to go to. I've covered a lot of SEC since I'm down I'm from Alabama, so I've covered most of the SEC. But I need to get up there and get
That's
to a
cool.
game. I definitely would like to. But that's a wrap on this interview. But man, I really appreciate you joining me. I'm gonna give you a chance to plug everything. I know the
Yeah.
Cardinal Insider and all that is awesome. So I'll go ahead and let you plug all that.
Yeah, no, you can follow me on Twitter at Jody Demling. Cardinal Authority is the website, the 24/7 sports site. You can go there, and I do the Cardinal Insider. It's more than just football and basketball, and that's the other thing that makes Louisville special around here is, we've got a baseball team that's been ranked number 1 in the country and multiple times in the last couple of years. A women's basketball team that currently, just last week were ranked number 1, and then they got beat, so they've only lost 1 game, and one of the best swimming and diving programs. So on my Cardinal Insider on iHeartRadio each night, I do an hour show, and that is more of all encompassing sports. So it's kind of fun to do, and it's a blast. I like doing multiple sports, and I love football, but that the variety is good.
Yeah, hey, it's like, the trend that's been going around is that we're an everything school, and that's
Yeah.
exactly what Louisville is. But man, we definitely appreciate it. But guys, you know where to find us. Y'all know where the podcast is available everywhere. YouTube, the Bluebloods. We'll continue our ACC in 28 days theme next week. But for right now, guys, we are out.